for can be overcome. 15 years ago, that wasn't always the case. There were a lot of projects that just got waylaid because of the power of the DEQ. And things have come back now to more of a balance, and they're far more open to what can you do to mitigate this problem. If we run into dwarf lake irises out here, which is a good possibility, there are methods now for digging them up and reestablishing. And who knows what else we're going to run into. Snails.
Masaga rattlesnake.
Rattlesnakes, yep, rattlesnakes are a big one now. So we don't want to be the project that destroys something that's environmentally sensitive. We don't think we'll end up there.
But back to my
Yes.
question, let's assume it gets, you don't make.
Shot down, yep.
What's gonna happen with the bike path?
Can I step in here a little bit, Mark? The first locations, we looked at the bike path at this current location where Mark's speaking to initially. And then we started looking at other locations. We got our Google Maps, started looking at where could it go. Fair Point Harbor property, maybe going down that way, maybe going across the Olympus property, the old Partridge Point Marina. And there was another gentleman that had quite a few lots in North and South Partridge Point Road area.
Ryan Woodruff.
Yes, Brian Woodruff. I talked to him. He was very open to the possibility of a bike path. So we looked at all of those, and then when Mark and I met with the DEQ the winter before this past one, they said, you know, we can't tell you what to apply for, but we can tell you that, you know, we would like it better if you had a straight path to minimize any going across wetlands and such. So if, to answer your question, Norm, that could still be on the table. This is a better location for it, given those factors, and dealing also with local property owners and such.
And what I was leading to, if that doesn't happen, so the bike path is gonna come to an end somewhere here, rather than the possibilities of it projecting down on the 23 and tying up with the other wonderful bike paths that are down further south.
Yeah,
that's probably pretty likely, isn't it?
It's likely that will happen.
Oh.
That's how fast these types of facilities are growing around the state. West side state is full of bike paths. We're being told by granting agencies that Northeast Michigan send us something. We want to see more from you. The Iron Bell Trail that came up to Tawas is planned to come all the way up to Alpena and go down Piper Road. That's just the location that they've got for it on paper right now. So there's already plans in place for that pathway to continue coming.
But would that interconnect with this?
In some fashion, it would, Norm.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, there was a meeting next month that Nathan's going to, I'm going to, perhaps some others. I don't know if you're going, Norm. NIMCOG did receive a planning grant for the DEQ Coastal Zone Management, CZM, and we're going to be meeting for the first time next month to determine the placement, initially planning purposes for what's going to be called the Sunrise Coast Trail, I
Yeah, to be finalized by the
Yeah.
spur. I just
It's all
call it
very
spur thus far.
Yeah, and like Mark said, the initial thinking is from those of us in Alpena, we'll come up Piper Road and connect into the bypass, Alpena bypass system at some point. We certainly hope it would be in this area someplace.
So then this would just dead end right there.
At the park?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it would of sorts, but there would be a way either from there going west, or more than likely because of the swale system in there a little bit further north, to go west into Piper Road and connect with the trail going south from that point.
Of which would probably be the likelihood of Wayne Road. Wayne Road is already finalized. County sunk all their money into it, so that's a low likelihood. But you also do have the other parameters of Pole Road being an easement that's a dead end. You have some of those other ancillaries, but you have far north of the wetland issues of, you know, the eastern side of Devil's Lake. So there's, I mean, that's why I'm attending that meeting, is to hopefully drive it further east, to utilize, and I see the way that you're speaking is that eventually, even if what you're stating with the bypass going to South Partridge Point, if they, as it's currently kind of formulated, it would tie into the bypass more or less within the city, and then the city's bypass eventually comes south of town in that regard. If we can spur them, unintended, to maybe open their eyes to another potential to where there's connectivity immediately, but that those are the unknowns.
That's what we need to work on, you know, could it be boardwalks or some other thing? Yeah, we just don't know yet. But there is a planning process underway, thankfully. So we were initially, you know, the Iron Bell Trail went completely around us, like Mark said, you know, went to Oscoda, went west of Grayling, and then north of 75. So now we have gotten the attention of the DEQ to do this initial responsible planning for
I
us.
love the idea of bypass are moving on common grade.
You have the increased property values, we were talking about this at one of our meetings, by an average of 4 to 7%, according to the research that I've done. The other thing to point out too, Steve, is the Northeastern State Trail, you know, goes north from Woodward Avenue, goes all the way up to Sheboygan, and you'll be able to get to Mackinac Bridge too. So you'll be able to go from Belle Isle to Mackinac Bridge, and then ultimately across the bridge and onto Ironwood.
Well, and that's,
That's a little bit, but definitely won't be around to see that.
yeah.
There have to be hotels along the way.
You might lose your tan too. But there again, that's one thing that we've already had some conversations. So from a township standpoint, we have to give those considerations too in the first leg of this potential. We're talking about potentials still at this point.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing that we would like to see. We've offered this room for having that public input session with the residents on South 23.
Yep.
Because at some point in time, talks are gonna continue to gain traction. And the quicker that you can have a level of support from those residents, minimizes the amount of calls I get at the tail end of it.
I couldn't agree more. Mark and I have talked about this 2 or 3 times. It's always been kind of down to timing. You know, we wanted to, you know, address you, talk about the wetlands, permit, so on and so forth, and then tie this together. So those residents, of course, will have an opportunity to discuss it.
Trustee Duncan?
Just a little historical perspective here. This is about the 3rd initiative on Squaw Bay. I happen to have a fairly lengthy history with Squaw Bay. I grew up sailing and swimming, still do it. I'm in love with that place in the world. When I think about my identity, I attach myself to Squaw Bay.
Yes.
And others as well, of course. It's a very, as you say, it's a very special place.
Yeah.
And so when I initially got involved in the project in 2012, my mother said, "Hey Matt, you remember Chubb White? He and a group of investors wanted to turn that into a marina, Squaw Bay into a marina." And of course, it was the beginning of the environmental movement, and thank goodness that very sensitive estuary didn't become just another marina. It's still a very special place.
Right.
Then in the mid-1980s, there was another initiative to develop it, and the Women League of Voters got involved in about 1986. And they came, again, to the rescue of that property. So when Larry brought this to me initially, I thought to myself, uh-oh, here we go again. But I have been convinced by my association with the group that we've learned from our past, and that we know the difference between good development and bad development. This is good development. It's good development because it has the potential of teaching the general public a new environmental perspective. And the boardwalk that you're talking about is a way to get new generations to appreciate the value of estuaries.
Yes.
So I'm behind the project as it's conceptualized as an interpretive tool and a way of teaching the general public. It's not just an opportunity for recreation. It's not just an opportunity for economic development. It's an opportunity to learn as a culture about where we have to go. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. We just started talking about the building that we would like to put out there. We want something very special and unique. And a classroom area is something that is being discussed, an open area with a lot of educational resources in there. A lot of glass too. We want people to be able to look out and see it. But there's nothing better for kids' education than to get out into the environment.
Yeah, and that's a potential of a goal. Right now, we're
That's right.
talking about, we can't get
Yep.
there unless we look at the environmental and
Yep.
cover
Step
So-
by step, yep.
And I think this first leg is crucial with getting permission to go across people's driveways. And that's one concern that I would like to see shored up at least, so we know that we're good to go on to the next step, you know?
Yeah, you're in the right of way, you have the permissions, but you're gonna have a
Pushback.
the longer you, that's my concern as a supervisor, is the more that you keep those shareholders out of this potential process, the stronger their fight's gonna be against it. If they feel that they're part of it, then you're gonna have a higher level of
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
We're working into that. We could have had that meeting this spring. That's how close we are to knocking on their doors, inviting them personally, come and listen to what we're thinking about doing, give us your input. And it's been my experience with projects like this, those people just want to be brought into the loop as early as they can. It wouldn't even be necessary probably to meet with them if we can't get here, because if the project goes a different direction. But we're open and
Yeah.
we'll go there next.
Yeah,
Set that up.
we had a public, one thing I want to talk
Yeah.
about, we did have a public input session early on about the bike path. This was in 2013. And about the bike path, about a park at the Squaw and some residents, you know the story, on South Partridge Point Road, they're very concerned about that. We're also talking about a park out there. And there were a couple that were very concerned.
Yeah,
And-
well,
Anyway, we worked with the residents and knocked on their doors, and we ended up coming up with a compromise for the Partridge Point Park. Instead of being right there where the birders go, across from a young lady's house, we ended up going back further east in the woods, and everybody was pleased about that. So that's, the reason I'm bringing this up is that Mark's already mentioned, we'll probably have people with concerns, of course. But how can we work with people to alleviate these concerns? If we plant giant growing white pines, for example, if they don't want to look at it.
well, that's what
There
I
is
can
mitigation.
we can dream about the wonderful potentials, but we'll never get to those potentials unless we go through what's a BAE or BEA, baseline environmental assessment, or what is the DEQ
That's not
testing?
really what it is.
Okay.
It's just, he'll do a wetland assessment, identification, and he'll do an endangered species research study. Yep, and we're gonna find things.
And sometimes DEQ, like I said, they can offset, you can do a 10-to-1 ratio of
Right.
offsetting if it's
On the
wetlands
wetlands.
onto,
Yep,
so there's mechanisms out there.
that's right. That
Um,
were very difficult to get to 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Now they're relatively commonplace.
Yeah, and I think this is the best conversation that we've had as a board with the envisionment of moving this forward.
Great.
You know, I think as a supervisor, one of my lingering concerns that I've mentioned to the board of South Bay is, okay, if this all comes to fruition, where are those legacy costs gonna fall?
Yep.
And so that's, as a municipality, those have to be considerations that we give. But it all starts with simply, let's move forward and find out what the.
One hurdle at a time.
So then I suppose the question is, looking downstream, however far we look downstream, is it the expectation of the South Bay group to gift that to the township?
Yeah, that's a great point, Steve. I've been thinking about this literally for months, and once again, I didn't want to get the cart before the horse too much. But a municipality certainly needs to take ownership of this, the township, as we move forward with grants and so forth. They need to know, of course, your support for the project and so forth. So I could very well see that being a possibility.
That's because I know that's what will happen with the bike path.
Yeah.
The burden of the municipality to maintain it.
Ms. Wolf, it looks like you have something.
Well, I just thought this might be.
Great segue for
Since we're kind of just gathered here, that is something like forming a friends group, which is, what we've done with Thunder Bay, and I've seen done with a lot of other bike trail type programs. I used to live in Owasso, and we did the same thing. We were taking the bike path, which is now, it's connected through Ionia. It's a huge trek through some farmland. And in fact, the person who was the CEO of the hospital at the time, it was going right through her farmland, and it was a Centennial farm, and it was like, no way, no how. But once she learned about it, and she learned about how the property values increase, and actually your land becomes safer, because the nature of the people who are cyclists, it creates not a lot of traffic, but enough to where it keeps crime rates drop, vandalism drops. People, I'm one of those people. Every time we come home, we have a bag of trash. You just can't stand seeing that plastic sitting there, what have you. And so she became one of its biggest fans. If you go through St. Charles, just north of Owasso, and before you get to Saginaw, that area in there, there's it's one of the most favorite, everyone loves that bike trail. Much of it is on boardwalk going through wetland, and it's spectacular. What people love about it is that it is unique. You don't get off that boardwalk, and it has, so I think it's an opportunity to take a treasure that we have and have it celebrated, and for people to be able to enjoy it and become better stewards of it without, things happening like, in fact, I would say, getting that trail and those plans in place will protect that from looking at future road changes and things like that. So I just wanted to, I think that there are venues, when you look at the legacy cost, I know for myself I'm responsible for pulling in to support some of the educational efforts with Thunder Bay. When you have an area like that and people love it, as we say all the time in the sanctuary, they take care of it. And Jacques Cousteau said that. And so we also see, that is part of Thunder Bay Sanctuary. And, that's another venue that people will be able to enjoy. I look at the Northeast Michigan Great Lakes Stewardship Initiative, if you're familiar with that. We have 12 counties now participating in that. And those students, place-based education, they are out there helping to improve the environment, learning, becoming good stewards. This would be a perfect location for them to learn about a very different area than what they would get, in some of the other locations. So the other thing I wanted to mention is, that trail is coming. We can be the last connector of it if we choose, but it is coming. NIMCOG getting that grant, that wasn't, the coastal zone management system, they don't look at things in an isolated fashion. And I work regularly with a person who heads the trailway parts of the coastal zone management system, and that is, that's part of a grand design. And so, we can drag our feet and have it done, in one way, or we can be a part of it and make it something really special for the area. And I look at it as our gateway to Northeast Michigan. You can listen to me, no, I didn't grow up here. But we fell in love with this area, and whenever we would come across that stretch of wetlands, it was just like you pause, and you're someplace special. And I think that that's the opportunity, that's what we talk about with the gateway, and having, the 45th parallel be something really special that we have to showcase. And I have to commend the people who have been working on this. I got involved in it when I was working with the Community Foundation because they were so convincing. And the last thing I really needed was another project to be involved with. And I live in Presque Hill, but I love that area, and quite frankly, I I respect the people who are driving this project and how much they've given of themselves through really challenging times, you know, that they've continued to persevere. And you could say, you know, the community, getting the community involved, there's already been $120,000 raised to do this planning, to have Mark be able to do this work, and that came from the community. I mean, it's not like it's been in isolation. The community has been, you know, when people put money into it, it usually means, you know, they're on board. And, you know, when you're out there picking up trash with the group, I mean, it's kind of disgusting picking up, you know, cigarette butts or whatever, but this group of people, you know, I just think it's been an honor to work with them and see them get out there and do the work that we need to make our community special. That's my
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Good job.
Our DPW gentleman, Devin Robinette, who took his lunch break out at the end of Frog Road, volunteered his services to pick up a bag of garbage, and I think there may be 3 pallets out there that should be addressed. But that's off the note, but he picked it up. So I applauded him for that. But I think that's where this conversation really needed to be. There's visions, but in able to find fruition of anything moving forward, it starts solely with additional funding to move forward with the wetland survey. Mr. Schultz,
Easy on the mister. I don't live in the township either, I live in the city. But as we talked this morning at the target meeting, there shouldn't be a boundary. There is no boundary to our guests, and mostly to ourselves. So this isn't a either or. This is just one thing on your list of many, and by the way, I appreciate the trustees especially for their time and the kind of contribution they have to make in our region. I want you to imagine a minute what this is going to look like in 30 or 40 or 50 years. Or go back that far and wonder what it would like if people hadn't made decisions before. So it's, you aren't thinking about today. You can't, as your responsibility is broader and far-reaching. In spite of the calls Nate may get from a neighbor, he has to think in long, long terms. His term might only be 4 years, but your decisions are decades long. And then eventually we need to be one. You have a water and sewer discussion going, which you have to think about what will you need in 30 or 40 or 50 years, not this year, or what happened last year, or the mistakes of the past. Those are virtually irrelevant in terms of what your planning is. So I encourage you to get up to 30,000 feet and take a peek. It's a beautiful region of America. People, my relatives in California say, why are we here? And we say, why not? If you go there, you're bumper to bumper. You're on a freeway for an hour to go anywhere. We've got a real blessing here. Our population can go to 60,000 people and be very, very comfortable over the next 10, 20, or 30 years. In my case, like Mr. Young, I've been blessed that we'd be able to build a business that sustains our family and our children are coming back. That's rare. But if your foresight is wide open enough and you realize that these sorts of things embellish the neighborhood and add value. I bought the little laundromat south of me to have access to 23 because our property was on a muddy road in the back, Nate. But thanks a lot, the county does clean it up once in a while. We need to do things like that as well. But my building fell down because it was old, rotten, and the roof fell in. So I'm looking at this little piece of ground trying to figure out, what do I put another 200,000 in this thing? And I got a neighbor with junk on both sides of me. So all these things will help them to have a better attitude too. And what we did with South Shore and what Bob has done with his business are all significant parts of the future. But they demand this. Our employees demand this. We need housing. I've got a few little dinky apartments I built out of necessity, and we're booked. We get people calling who've never seen the place, $1,100 a month, and they say, we'll take it. It's amazing the kind of demand that's out there and waiting for us to prepare the way for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schultz.
Boy, lunch is in the wake, so you don't need me to blabber. How eloquent, Mr. Sterling. Well, best presentation yet, so I thank you for summarizing everything.
Thank you.
It's pretty clear, you know, the long-term stuff that Dennis talks about. So, and Nate, I promise not to talk much about begging for money, but, you know, I think anytime you can review this and you can see for the public good what needs to be done, hear us out. We're here on your side. Some of us will time out as we get to 70s plus. I think That's term limits right there.
I'm getting close.
Anyway, thank you again for taking, Norm, thanks for inviting us for this. Appreciate it a lot. I'm gonna step back and let you guys do lunch, I think.
I got one little thing here. Did you, anybody have any questions? Any further questions upon reflection of all the comments? Thank you, I agree, Nathan, this has been a wonderful discussion, I think, and thank you, Mark. The ability to see it visually is certain of a big benefit, you know, and really thank you for bringing all that today. I would like to ask you in closing remarks, I promised to go through all the history and everything, and I've decided that, you know, I've talked about this before, if you remember, we've had 4 public input sessions, we've had 2 classes of students from MSU, landscape architecture and urban and regional planning. And all of the studies have indicated that what 23 South really needs is enhancement of the commercial corridor, yes, but parks, including a park at Squaw Bay, bike paths, and some other things that also scored in there well, like Dennis was saying, more residential housing, multi-use environments and so forth. So again, like Mark was saying, we really tried to do our due diligence and not go too fast, to be able to be transparent with the community and certainly with you. You've been very well informed, I think, about every step of what we're thinking about. We've always asked you for your input. We've asked you if you had any questions. We've asked you if you supported the project. And in fact, in 2014, Norman introduced a resolution in August for a letter of support for the South Bay Corridor Plan, which was approved. But to take a step further, we went on to include the plans in your current rec plan and in the last 2 master plans. So with all of that, I'd like to ask you to consider, please, passing a resolution of support and approval for the South Bay Corridor plans moving forward, specifically, if you'd like, for the 45th Parallel Park at the Pole John property and the Partridge Point Park and the bike path extension, contingent on a successful wetlands assessment and also a successful DEQ wetlands permit.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Clark. My rebuttal would be, I would entertain a motion to transfer $4,000 from line item 101265976.000 to line item 101.600.801.700 from capital, it would be from capital outlay, building and grounds, to South Bay Corridor, to move forward with the wetlands assessment. And that is a start point. And I also agree, finding the results from there, that would give this board a more steadfast direction to look and fully support by resolution moving forward with this plan.
Would you entertain me coming forward then upon the successful completion of those, coming back to the board and asking?
I think that
for
would
something
be,
in
that
writing?
would be an appropriate direction as a municipality to know that, because as we talked in this discussion, if that doesn't happen, then this isn't gonna happen. So let's get that horse back in front of the cart. In that regard, let's get the wetlands assessment accomplished. And when we have those results, Mr. Strelin, actually, I would entertain.
There's a motion on the
There is a motion on the table.
I'll make
So-
that motion.
So the
I'll support.
motion to transfer 4,000 from capital outlay to the South Bay corridor to move forward with the wetlands assessment.
Assessment.
Okay.
By Lappin, is there support?
I support that.
Fully supported. Is there further discussion at this
No, I
point?
just wanted to make sure that you did that the way you did it, not the way Larry asked for it. Because it could be 18 months before we
Yeah.
get a DEQ permit.
Exactly.
But to get the environmental assessment done, that's where we need to be next. And that,
That's,
I would guess
Point of
we'll have
order.
results of that.
Point of order.
Just one second.
Yeah.
Point of order.
we have a motion.
We have a motion on the table this is what we discussed
Yeah.
as a board. If you want to open up discussion outside the motion, that's fine with me. But we have an issue of concern to this board right now.
Point of order noted.
Thank you.
Barring any further discussion of the transfer of funds to perform a wetlands analysis, or however it's termed, an environmental report
Yes.
through the DEQ. Any further discussion?
Could I have the transfer lines
Yeah.
again? I'm sorry.
I wrote it
had
down
to
on
step
this
up.
for a quick one. Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dunkel,
Yes.
trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers,
Yes.
trustee Kroll,
Yes.
supervisor Skibby.
Yes.
Thank you very
Let's
much.
take that next step.
Now, just to be clear, it's a total of 5, you already approved 1, or is it total of 4?
We have approved 1, 4 on top of that, so there would be $5,000 funding for your line item, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, board. Thank you. for
Thank you,
listening.
and I would like to thank all the rest of the board members that took time out of their day to attend, Ms. Wolf and Mr. Straley. Who knows, maybe I'll see you the last weekend of April.
Most likely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Larry's the man, I guess.
Yeah. So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session in regards to attorney-client privilege, in regards to water litigation, and also consider a confidential written legal opinion from counsel.
We take a 5-minute bathroom break.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'd like to add to that motion, what do you